Welcome to Raiders on the Record, the podcast featuring Hastings High School athletics. I'm Athletic Director Trent Hansen. My colleague Tim Hanneberg and I work together to bring you the stories of Raider sports. We are thrilled to share conversations with the athletes, coaches, and alumni that represent Raider Nation. Check back weekly and be sure to share this podcast with your friends in the Raiders Network.
Adam Gerlach is a 2000 Raider graduate. During his time at Hastings High School, Adam was a three-sport athlete competing in football, hockey, and baseball. In football, he was a three-time letter winner, multiple-time all-conference recipient, and all-state his senior year. The football team was state finalists during his senior year and compiled a 34-4 record during the 3 years he was on varsity. In hockey, Adam rotated between the JV and varsity during his freshman year and was full-time on the varsity during his final 3 years of high school. During that time, his hockey team was a state qualifier during his 10th grade year, took second his 11th grade year, and third his senior year. Again, Adam was a multiple-time all-conference recipient and all-state in hockey. In baseball, Adam was a 3-year varsity letter winner, multiple-time all-conference athlete, and all-state his senior year. During his junior year, the baseball team won the state championship. After high school, Adam played junior hockey in Duluth, Iowa, and after one season, attended MSU Mankato, where he played hockey as well. Since graduating from college, Adam has coached over 20 years of youth sports and competed multiple times in the Red Bull Crashed Ice events. During his first year competing, he placed top 4 and was invited to be a member on the Team USA, but had to decline. Many consider Adam to be the best athlete to ever come out of Hastings and is one of the few three-sport athletes in our history. Adam's high school career, post-high school career, and years of youth sports give Adam an insight into sports few others have. Here we are with Adam Gerlach. Adam, we always start at the beginning of our guest live, so we love it to hear about where you grew up. If you're always from Hastings, did your family eventually move to Hastings? Were your parents originally from Hastings? Who your parents are, brothers, sisters, all the good stuff about you growing up.
Yeah. So I was technically born in Kentucky, then a very short stint in Ohio, then California, but pretty much since 5 years old on, I grew up in Hastings. I still have my mother, father in Hastings, and I have 2 brothers that are in Hastings, and I have 1 in Maple Grove. So we're all still close to the Hastings area. Yeah, I grew up playing all different sports, enjoyed my time there. Then I went, and I'm not sure if this is where the question's going or not, but I spent some time in Dubuque in the USHL for hockey. Then Mankato for 4 years of hockey there. And then I took a job with Ecolab for a couple of years. And then I took a job with 3M that brought me to the Chicagoland suburbs for about 4 years. And now I am back in Woodbury, and I have been for probably 12 years now, I want to say. And I do a lot of traveling for work. And I got to say, I mean, I know Minnesota gets cold. We all know that. But it's a very clean, beautiful place, and people are great. So happy to still be here.
Perfect. I think we got it all. That's the end of the interview right there. Thanks, Adam. I'm kidding. I got a lot more questions here for you, but no, we'll get on to a couple more here. So let's go back again to kind of when you first moved to Hastings. And this is going to be maybe a little racking your brain here to answer it, but walk us through the schools you went through in Hastings. The only reason why I like doing this is some of those teachers may still be around. It's always nice for them to get a little shout out. So once again, talk about the schools you went to, and then once again, any teacher that had a big impact on your life.
Yeah. So I think I was at Pinecrest for kindergarten and then first grade. And then Krista McAuliffe opened up. So I was the first second grader at Krista McAuliffe. Big deal. And from there, obviously, this is what I love about Hastings is that I went to the Hastings Middle School. You know, it's like 5 or 6 elementary schools feeding the middle school. You know, if you're going to middle school, someone you're going to high school. Mm-hmm. And in Woodbury now, it's, I mean, heck, you can go to so many different schools and no one knows where they're at. So I miss that about the community. A lot of teachers had a lot of impact, definitely in my life. And honestly, it was sports so much for me. So there's a lot of coaches that were also teachers, that had kind of a double impact on my life for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, I know what you're talking about for just having everything in here in Hastings. I love our middle school. I love our high school. We don't lose a lot of athletes to other schools or private schools here too. So I love that our kids play together here in our middle school and kind of go to school together, and then they kind of go with each other to our high school too. So those friendships and those bonds are pretty long lasting here in Hastings, which I absolutely love.
Yeah, no doubt.
So let's hear about you growing up playing a sports. When we do this, I usually like stopping people right around seventh grade. I feel like that's when sports gets a little more serious for people. Some of the guys and girls that we have on the show too, that's kind of when they're brought up to a varsity or a JV level. So let's hear about the sports you played growing up, Adam. And then, yeah, and then like I said, stopping about seventh grade.
Stop at seventh grade. Got it. So, um, all the way up, answer this question high level. I played about I played four sports up to I think eighth grade, but we'll stop at seventh grade. So it was hockey, football, baseball, and actually soccer. Um, and what I love about Hastings specifically is, especially back then, and I think we still do it at Hastings, is it's all in house for the most part. So I remember getting a T-shirt, whether it was in baseball and it was I'm at the Minnesota Twins or Seattle Mariners, and you're playing against your friends. And hockey was the same thing. I think in squirts we had 5, 6, 7 teams, or maybe even more than that, and we play each other. And what am I missing here? Soccer was the same thing, and then football, Little Raiders. It was so fun to play against kids, and hey, that kid goes to Kennedy, or hey, that kid goes to Cooper or Pinecrest, and it just again, I went back to there. I'll go back to what I said, which is it was just such a small world, and it was so important at the time, and all of those sports really just you know helped me in all parts of life at that time, and helped me continue to become who I was to this day. So a lot of sports. It was always one sport ends, the next
Mm-hmm.
sport starts. And now I feel like it's almost impossible because every sport goes all year round, which is a whole other story. So
So you talked about playing Little Raiders. I know you got a lot of accomplishments in your life here, Adam. Walk us through the final game, the championship game of sixth grade.
I know. Oh, I think that's when
If you
I
want to
want to
just
say
do
it's
the
when
final
Josh
play
McClay.
here. Yeah,
I
we
think
could
that's
just go
when
through the final play of the final game.
final play.
I think we know where
Okay.
this is going here. So,
I think that was the play where Josh McClay thinks he threw the ball 70 yards in the air, but it was really about a 15-yard pass that hit. I think he hit Nate Kranz, which is his name, which was wide open. And I've never seen a ball so poorly thrown for to be so successful. So that's what he gets for talking about
yeah. All right.
that.
And that was a play to win the game, I heard. So,
It was, though I will
yeah.
tell you that um, Josh McClay in Little Raiders was such a machine that he had plenty of plays before that led to winning that game. I can tell you that.
I'll uh,
So,
I'll make sure he gets the credit so he'll find out
oh
soon
yeah,
about
oh
this. So. Oh
yeah.
man. So start us in seventh grade then, Adam, and walk us through. I think it makes the most sense. We'll start seventh grade in the fall, seventh grade winter, and then spring. Walk us through the sports you played. We like hearing a lot of things about our guests during the sections or during the session. Things like did your team have any accomplishments, section champs, state championships, things of that nature?
Yeah,
Captain honors for you, individual honors for
sure,
you, any kind of things that go along with the team as well. So, like I said, starting in seventh
sure.
grade, fall, we can walk through every single year.
Yeah. Oh man, you're good. You're making me really dig deep here. I think I can
Well,
muster some things up here. So in
I know
fall
some of the
seventh grade,
yeah, some of the
at
things like
that
all conference those are really hard to remember. Honorable mention. So if you got anything that really stands out, let's hear about it.
well, yeah. I mean, I can get into accolades when high school hits, and that was more around sophomore year. But I do remember. I'll tell you what I remember in fall in seventh grade. and I don't know if they still do this, but they had lightweights and heavyweights. And I wanted to be on the heavyweight team, but I was just too light. So we had a great team. There's guys I remember named Mark Weber, is another great athlete. And I think all of our football teams went undefeated in 7th grade. And we kind of knew, even at that young age, that we had a pretty special group of guys. And they didn't just play football, they played basketball and hockey and baseball. Because we were a small community compared to, especially when we got in high school, the other teams. So we didn't have necessarily power in numbers, but we had power in numbers because we were such multi-sport athletes. So football, extremely successful. You go to hockey, that would put me in Bantams. Actually, that might put me in Kiwis. I can't remember. I always played. I was kind of on an edge of one of the age brackets. So my first year of Kiwis and Squirts and Bantams, I would be playing with guys essentially 2 years older and 1 year older. So my first year I never had really a season where I had people younger than me in second year Kiwis, if that makes any sense. But in Kiwis and Bantams, we had guys that like Jeff Tafe and Dan Welch, who were always good, but very, obviously very good at that time as well, along with a lot of other good athletes. And we would finish seasons 52-4, and we just really, as a group, we really got used to winning a lot, and we really didn't accept losing, to be honest. So it would be rare. So then baseball, I got to tell you, I barely have any memories of 7th grade baseball. You go into 8th grade football back into fall. And I remember that we had an undefeated season going into South St. Paul, and we lost to South St. Paul. And again, we didn't really accept losing. And that one, I still remember that. Here, I'm 41 years old, and I remember in 8th grade that we lost a game in 8th grade.
Mm-hmm.
So again, a lot of great athletes. We knew that in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, we were going to be a force to be reckoned with, and we were, which we'll get into. Again, you get into the hockey season, and we're going to the state VFW tournament. We're going to the state, I think it's Maha tournament, and we were always a top team growing up in all the sports. And in baseball, we ended up winning a state tournament my junior year, but we were a good team. I would never say that we were a lights out team in 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. We really came together nice in high school. So you just want to keep going 9th grade?
Oh yeah, let's go.
Okay.
For sure.
9th grade again in football in the fall now. I stopped playing indoor soccer somewhere in that time as well. We had an indoor league at the hockey rink, which was pretty fun. I think my last year was 8th grade. 9th grade, we had an undefeated season. Again, we had guys like McClay and Mark Weber and Jim Gunderson and Eric Lawmeyer. I mean, I bring up these names, which many people may or may not know, but I thought we were again a force to be reckoned with. Mm-hmm. I remember beating Simley 84-0, and I think it was like 60 something to 0 at halftime. It's like every time we touched the ball, we were scoring.
Yeah.
And it's like whoever wanted, who wants the touchdown? I mean, we had that much talent on the team. So that was a lot of fun. 9th grade winter, I was able to go play at the varsity JV level, which was a lot of fun. But again, being at that time, I would have been just turning 15. It's pretty intimidating being with 16, 17, 18-year-olds. They were at a different stage of puberty, obviously. And at that time, I was doing both JV and varsity practices, which was a lot of hockey, and it was great. And I think I don't know, maybe a handful of the 10 games I was able to get in for a period or at the end of the game. But junior varsity was a lot of fun. Just in general, all those sports. I love the middle school era of sports. Every stage of sports was great. But yeah, hockey was good. I actually broke a bone in my hand, which I still played with a cast, but I remember that affecting me quite a bit. But that was great. And then I really wanted to play varsity baseball my senior year, but I never got a chance because they just didn't bring freshmen up. But that would have been a blast playing with the older guys as well. I don't know if it's appropriate to say or not. I believe I could have played as a freshman at the time, and that's what was a little frustrating. But I was able to play. It was almost the same squad the next year, and I was able to play as a sophomore. So now we're probably getting into actually the years that I remember more. So I probably give you more detail. So sophomore year of football, we trying. I didn't know what to expect, and we were starting sophomore ball, and varsity was kind of doing their thing. And then myself and another gentleman by the name of JT Malm, they called us up as sophomores, and again, wasn't sure what. Let's say it's just a different. Football's a different deal when you're full contact and you're a sophomore and you're going against guys that. I want to say it was Sean McCoy. There's some big guys that are seniors, and they're just filling out a little bit more. And Bob Majeski saw me as a free safety, so he put me in. I played offense my whole life. I barely played any defense. I was always a running back, and I run. So it was very new to me, but I feel like I caught on pretty fast, and I don't think I started the first quarter of the first game, but I went in the second quarter, and then I started the rest of the games as a sophomore. So and we had a good team. We went all the way to state tournament, and I do remember I was all conference honorable mention as a sophomore in football, which was a big deal to me. And we went all the way to the state tournament, played Eden Prairie, and lost to them. And I believe, they ended up winning the entire thing. And that was the game where Mark Johnson and Charlie Black had a 99-yard touchdown, which is the record in the Prep Bowl. And I'll never forget how loud the crowd was. By no means did we fill up all the Metrodome, but there was a lot of Hastings Raider fans there, and I still remember that ball going and catching it and just the roar behind. So I can only imagine being on the field, even in the Metrodome, when something big happened and it was a full crowd. So great time. We lost 2 games technically. We lost to St. Thomas, and then we lost to Eden Prairie on that game. Great year, and this will be a common theme as I talk. We went so far in every sport that we would get done, and the other season would have probably started a week or two.
Yep.
So we were always behind. All the football players were a little bit behind trying to get caught up to speed. And I was able to play as a sophomore on the varsity team. And I would say a lot of people had successful seasons because we won a lot of games by a lot of points, but I felt like I was really happy with the amount of goals and assists, and more importantly, the amount of wins and how far we made it. But we went all the way to the state tournament my sophomore year, and we ended up losing to Duluth East. Again, this will be a common theme, and Duluth East in the state tournament ended up winning the state championship in hockey, and they had a really good team. We did too. But they had a great team. So brings me to, and you can let me know if I'm going too slow, too fast, too little detail, too much.
You're doing awesome.
All right, and then it's funny because I know I really haven't thought like this chronologically in a long time on how things went. Baseball, my sophomore year, I played varsity 3 years in three sports, which has been great. we had a pretty darn good team. We lost, I want to say, to Roseville in the section finals. At gosh, what field was it? I can't remember now. Wherever we used to play in the sections, but really good team. I remember thinking the pitching was pretty darn fast. Being a sophomore, I was playing freshman ball the year before, so things definitely changed. But that was a wonderful year, and I think for accolades, I think I was either all conference or all conference honorable mention. I can't remember, but it was a fun time. So junior year is when things started to heat up. Even though we played in 2 state tournaments my sophomore year, we in football we had a great team, and we were 8-0 going against Woodbury, which is where I live now, obviously. And we were both 8-0 going to the conference championship. And this game you may or may not have heard of, but it went down to, ironically, I never played receiver. They put me in receiver that week, and they just told me to keep running down the field. And Dustin Bogusin kept throwing the ball and throwing the ball. And I played receiver ever since, so I played both ways from there. But this was the game that we were down 21-0 at halftime. And I'll never forget we were running into the locker room, and they kept chanting Royal Pride. They had this thing that was Royal Pride, and man, it was making our blood boil. And we came back out, and we're tied it up at 21-21. And they came down the field and they scored, and the kicker missed an extra point. So we were down by 6, and we had, I don't know, maybe a minute to go down the field and score. We completed a couple of passes, and we were really down to our last play. It was like 15 seconds left, let's just say. And Dustin Bogusin goes back, and Ben Utek, who's a Super Bowl champ, is running down. He throws a Hail Mary pass, and he had to throw the ball. Not everyone was sitting there. He had to throw the ball while Ben was still running, and it just perfectly went right into Ben's hands, and they scored. And that was one of the defensive backs was Louis Ianni for Woodbury, who ended up playing Northwestern and playing in the pros as well. So they had a great team. But we also had a great team, and we scored with maybe 11 seconds left. Ryan Rombacher did kick the extra point, and Bob Majeski has a picture of this. The guy came over the line like this, and the ball, there's a picture of the ball right here. It went right over his head.
Oh my God.
To score the extra point. And yeah, we ended up winning that game. But before the game was over, they had another 6 seconds. And this is the way the game went. They had another 6 seconds from their own 20 to try to score. And they threw up a Hail Mary, and it probably landed on the 40-yard line. And Dan Welch, who never plays defense, was on defense, and it went off his chest and bounced up. He was trying to pick the ball off. Then the receiver came flying, cut across, got the ball, and ran. And all of us were flat-footed. And Mark Weber tackled him on the 10-yard line. Otherwise, they would have won the game. He tackled him. The game was over. And the rest is history on that game. We ended up meeting Woodbury in the section final 3 weeks later. And it was the exact opposite of the game. We were up by a ton, and then a couple really fluky things happened, and they came back, and they beat us really in the last minute, which was devastating. But I'll never forget Todd Field. I'm not joking. There must have been 8,000 to 10,000 people there. I mean, there's people all around. There's people layers outside of the place. You've never seen a place more packed than for that game. And it was great. And then Woodbury ended up going and win the state tournament. Again, the trend you'll continue to hear. If we didn't win it, the people we lost to deep in the season ended up winning it. So off to hockey my junior year.
And right into it probably, huh?
What's that?
Right into the season, right? No break.
Right into the season.
Yeah.
Right into the season. And I'll tell you, I was in unbelievable shape on a football field. But if you talk to anyone that does it, you get on the hockey rink and you feel out of shape immediately. It takes a while to get back going. Another great team. We had a couple guys move in. Ben Tharp moved in, I think, that year. And he was one of the top defensemen in the state, ended up going and, going to the Gophers for a year, and then to the USHL for his transfer year, and then ended up at Miami, Ohio. But unbelievable player. I remember him coming in, and I think we won essentially almost all of our games. So I might just hop over to the state championship our junior year. That was a year where we ended up playing Blaine in the quarterfinals, and we probably had, well, I'm not even going to get in the shots, but it was lopsided. We were crushing Blaine, but they just had the ability to score. And as a matter of fact, it was like 6-5, I want to say, with a minute left. And this is a game where Dan Welch scored with 45 seconds left. And then there's a play at the end where they're coming down with us with 5 seconds left. And Jeff Tafe gets the puck and kind of just flings it to center ice. I don't know if you've ever seen this clip.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And Dan Welch circles around and scores with 0.2 seconds left. Honestly, when it comes to high school, it's what this state, I played in 6 state tournaments, but they're all special. But this one was, from a moment standpoint, it was incredible. I think our fans knocked the plexiglass down, and then they did it the next game too, because that was against Elk River in double overtime. I think Travis Kiefer, who claimed to be the hometown hero, he scored in double overtime and then knocked the plexiglass down again. So I think from there they essentially, that might have set the tempo to not have students up against glass anymore. And then, this was probably one of my more sobering memories was the state championship, because we had the late games. They change us now, but we had the latest game on the quarterfinals, the latest game on semifinals, and it was really difficult for us to calm down after those wins, I got to tell you. And I do believe we were running on empty. We came out in the first period and we outshot them like 18-3, and couldn't put any goals away. We had so many opportunities, and then they just chipped away, and it was Roseau. They just chipped away and beat us 4-0. We had a goal called off. I remember I hit the joint on a breakaway. There's just things just didn't work out, but that's definitely one I wish we had back for sure. Yeah. So again, the season's going late. It's Minnesota now. It's baseball season, so we're here playing. I don't know, taking batting practice in a hockey rink with turf down, or you're in the gym. It's tough. Baseball can be tough in high school, because your first 10 games are also in really terrible weather. But that was a year that we surprised ourselves, and no one really had us pegged to do anything too crazy. And before you know it, gosh, I mean, this really takes me back. This was the year where Creighton-Durham Hall had a 65 or 66 game unbeaten streak, which was the longest in the country of any sport, I want to say. And we went in section play, and it was a dark, rainy night, and we ended up beating them. It went back and forth. We beat them in the last inning. It was unbelievable. And another great memory. We played them. It's always double elimination baseball, so we played them a few days later, and we actually 10-runned them to go on to state. And then the state tournament, gosh, again, I don't know how much detail you want me to get into, but my goodness gracious, there's a lot of things that have to go right in baseball for you to win the state tournament, because it's one and done when you hit the state tournament. But we had a great team. We had an unbelievable hitting lineup, and we had a very strong field, infield, outfield, and we took it to everyone pretty well. And that's one of my favorite memories in high school, as well as is running from the outfield to go celebrate with the team after we beat Cretan and then after we won the state tournament. So that was a lot of fun. And I'll just keep going, I guess. Now senior year. So senior year, okay. Getting into our senior year, we lost a ton of talent. We had I think in order to be successful in high school, you got to have a not only does your grade have at the top level, right? The highest, we always played at that time at the highest class, right? Double A in hockey and double A in baseball and gosh, football, whatever it got to, maybe 4A. So yeah, you gotta have great talent ahead of you and great talent, or you gotta have a strong class ahead of you and you gotta be strong, or vice versa. You gotta be strong in class, somebody has to be strong. So we didn't know what to expect because we lost a lot of really good talent. But we still had a lot of talent in our grade as well. So now we're hitting football, and we knew we were going to be pretty good. We were a little unsure at the quarterback spot because, again, we lost Dustin. We had Greg Begnow was our quarterback, and he was actually lights out the entire year. He was a really strong quarterback, and we got to rematch Woodbury our first game. And we knew it was going to be a difficult game. The quarterback on Woodbury's team is now my brother-in-law, and he was the one that won the state. He was the one that won the state tournament the year before when we lost to Woodbury. So we knew they were going to have a good team, and I think it was like it was tied 14-14 or something like that, real close at halftime. And then we lit it up in the second half, and I think we won. It might have been 40 something to 14. So we knew we were going to have a good team, and we did. We ended up rolling through all the way until we hit the state championship game, where we ran into Joe Mauer. And people are going to think I'm crazy when I say this, but more importantly than Joe Mauer is probably about another 8 or 9 Division I football guys. They had a strong line. There was times in that game where he looked like Tom Brady when Tom Brady has, he ever goes back in the pocket and he just sits there like that, flat-footed, and then makes the throw. He had a lot of time, and he also has obviously a very good arm and is a good quarterback, or was a good quarterback. We kept the game very close, and then just right before halftime, we had 2 turnovers that they capitalized on, and it just put the game out of reach for us. So I think we lost, just say 40-20. It was something right around there, give or take a few points. But again, they had a great team. They ended up having, I want a couple Gophers on that team on the line. Their running back was Sean Powers Neal, who ended up being a running back at Notre Dame. They were a really good team. There's probably the best team that in my time that I ever went against. And I think in total, to wrap up football, I think when I was there for the 3 varsity years, our teams were 34-4, I want to say. Yeah, we lost 2 games my sophomore year, and then 1 junior and one senior. So the football was unbelievable in that span. And then they ended up going and winning the state tournament 2 years later. So definitely a golden era for sure on the football side. And when we went to the state tournament for that, I got to think now. I think that was baseball, football, and then I can't remember.
1999, correct or no?
Yeah, it was 99. I'm trying to think of hockey. So, it was hockey. So when I ended up, when we ended up going to the state championship in football my senior year, that was my 3rd state championship, consecutive season of state championships, because we were in the state championship for hockey, and then baseball we won it, and then football. So I thought that was a really interesting statistic for sure. And then, of course, again, now time to get the jelly legs going in hockey. We're already far behind, and we lost even more in hockey. I talk about how much we lost in football. We lost obviously 3 Gophers that graduated on, and we had a really good season, and we ended up going to the state tournament again. and we ended up taking third place. So I think the coolest thing about that year for the state tournament was our last, well, 3 of our last 4 games. I actually do want to go back to this. Our section final game, we ended up playing against Johnson, and they had a good goalie, and we outshot them, I think, like 42-8. It was incredible. They were up 1-0 with 12 seconds left. And we had a face off in the offensive zone, and Travis Kiefer won the face off back. And I kind of shut my eyes and I took a wrist shot and I put it in the upper corner. And then we ended up winning in overtime, which was a really amazing game. And then the next 3, so 3 out of our last 4 games went into overtime. We lost to Blaine, who 4-3, who ended up winning the state championship game 6-0. So we were a good team. Blaine had a couple guys that played in the NHL, and quite a few guys that were, maybe 5 guys on the team were Division I. So they had a very solid team. But it was a great time, and it was a great team. And then off to baseball. Well, I'll summarize hockey. So in hockey, we ended up, our record was, I don't know exactly what the record was, but we went to the state tournament all 3 years. And I do tell people, like, that's something I definitely am proud about, because I do think that the high school state tournament for Minnesota is one of the top state tournaments in the entire country for any sport. And there's nothing like playing in that tournament. Yeah, especially again with your buddies that you ended up waking up at 6 a.m. and frying your hands trying to tie your skates, right? The guys that you kind of, live and die with on the rink. So that was great for high school hockey. I would definitely say it's successful teams and career in high school hockey. And then we went to baseball, and we had a great team. We had Matt Vanderbosch was a good player. Went and played AAA baseball in the end. He went to play college in Oral Roberts, and then was in the Red Sox AAA program. Really good player. And we had some good pitching and other great players as well. I think we went to the section finals, I want to say, and I think we lost to St. Thomas. That was unfortunate. On an individual level, that was probably my most successful statistic year for baseball. I hit like 6-0, I can't remember, 608 or 603 or something like that, and a lot of home runs and stolen bases and RBIs, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun. In overall for high school, I think I was all conference 6 times. I was all Metro in football, baseball, and hockey. I was all Metro twice for football, and then I was all state for football, baseball, and hockey as well. And I guess to kind of summarize high school, it was that year I won the Minnesota Prep Athlete of the Year, which was a really cool honor. And I actually on the Minnesota high school MSHL or whatever it is, it was actually an honor, because about 5 years ago they did the top 100 athletes in the last 100 years for Minnesota, and it was funny because they did a bracketology on that, and they put me in there as one of the top 100 prep athletes in the last 100 years. So that was quite an honor. I lost to Natalie Darwitz, by the way.
I was just about to ask you, how'd you do in the bracket?
But I will tell you, you see the names on there, and you have Olympians and I mean, some really talented individuals. So a lot of fun. High school was a great time for me in sports, and again, being a part of a great community and having friends and a support system around, and sports in general, in youth, in high school. It got me through a lot. So I'm forever thankful for everything that Hastings provided provided me and my family growing up, no doubt.
For sure. So, Adam, you played for a lot of coaches growing up at the youth level, middle school, especially at our high school. Very impossible question, and especially being a three-sport athlete, you can name a couple names if you want. We give people that right to do that. So, if you had to name maybe your best coach, once again, pick one from each sport, or just pick a couple from any kind of sport. So, who was that best coach for you? You growing up?
Yeah, this is a real tough one. I'm going to cheat a little bit, but
Mhm.
definitely for hockey. I loved playing for Russ Welch. I really did. He had the intensity. Um, he definitely had the emotion, right? So it's a guy where you could listen to him and he'd be losing his voice because he's so pissed off, and then before you know it, he's getting emotional and crying because he's just so happy about fill in the blank. So I loved Russ's emotion and his passion. And I appreciate everything that Russ did in hockey. And I do want to say, like, here's where I'm going to cheat is the coaches in BAMs and Pee-wees in general. I mean, I had so many great coaches, and they were all, those were very influential individuals for me. And for that reason, I've probably coached 20 seasons of youth sports already, and I still have a 9-year-old. So I'll continue to do more because I find it as a great way to impact kids' lives. Um, for football, I love playing for Bob Majeski. Again, very very passionate guy. He just knew how to lead a team. And then I do want to shout out to my position coach, Marty Kranz, who just had a great way about him on understanding the game and understanding the emotion of the game. And he was a great coach as well. And then for baseball, it would be definitely Doc Loudon and Ron Driscoll, because those guys, I don't know, just those two together. Baseball is just such a different sport than all the other sports, right? It's a little bit more of a mind game because there's a little bit more sitting around, and then you got to perform on the plate, 3, 4, 5 times a game, and you're in the outfield, you got to keep yourself busy. But those guys kept it fun, and they let us put our best foot forward as well. So that's a lot of coaches, but I wish I could go through so many more names, but again, all very influential.
For sure. I think you've kind of maybe already talked about this question, and we always ask this one next is your favorite teammate. And I always bring up there's many different ways that you can answer this. It could be that older athlete on the team when you were kind of brought up at a young age,
Yeah.
something that you really try to model your behaviors after. It could be those guys that, once again, you've already talked about many of these guys here, those people that are the same age as you that you just kind of push each other and excel at the same rate. And it could also be someone that you always had your go-to person, someone that you
Yeah.
needed a shoulder to cry on, you could go for it. So many different sports for you, Adam. You could answer with a couple different people. And like I said, you already named some names. If you want to name some more, go back to those people, whatever you want.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say that I will just say one name on this one, and it's might be because he was we started we hung out. We were kind of joined at the hip for a lot of middle school and high school. He was actually 1 year older than I was, but Dustin Vogelsang, we played baseball growing up all the way together. We played hockey growing up all the way together, and we played football growing up all together. So we were always the ones that were going to the next sport. And um, you know, Dustin, to this day, he's the head coach at Eastridge for hockey, and um, he's so great with developing more than just a player, right? Developing the person, and I definitely respect that. And he was all in back when he played. He was all in on every sport, and I really thought he worked hard. I thought that he was always very positive with people, which not everyone is, right? Um, and I just felt like I went through every step with him. So he's definitely one of my um, you know most influential. And when I think of one name, the guy that I went through everything with. So
Awesome. So you wrap up your high school career. Walk us through what the recruiting process looked like. You were, multi-sport all state here. So I'm
yeah,
sure had a couple different options going on and many different schools coming at you at a couple different levels. So once again, let's hear what the recruiting process looked like for you.
sure.
How did you make up your decision with college? How did you make up your mind with the sport you want to play? Let's go through all that stuff.
Yeah. So I would say that I had the most interest for football out of high school. Um, the Gophers offered a full scholarship to go play free safety at the Gophers. I was talking to them often. Multiple times a week. I was getting a lot of interest from Michigan State as well. And then I was getting, I would say that was the most interest. And then I would say kind of second level interest where we're communicating back and forth it was another 7 to 8 Division I schools. Um, and then I guess I'll mention NDSU as well because they were calling me every day for like it actually made me stop like answering the phone. I let my brother Sean, who was 7 years younger, answer the phone, and he would back when we didn't have cell phones, so
Yeah.
he'd call and talk their ear off, and then I don't know, he'd kind of tell me who it was, and I'd be like, ugh, because in the end, um, I had a great baseball season too, so there was definitely some interest on baseball. The problem with baseball is I was already committed to go play hockey, and I chose hockey. The easiest way for me to say this is I chose hockey because it's the sport I enjoyed the most. I always went back to practice, and I said I could practice all day in hockey. I did not feel that way about football. I did not feel that way about baseball.
Hmm.
So I guess to me, my passion was in hockey, and I knew that I was going to go play juniors because um, I watched 3 guys go to the Gophers before, but that is still really rare
Hmm.
to go right into college, even when I was in high school. So I knew the route was going to be juniors, and I was tenured by uh, Dubuque Fighting Saints. So I was going to the great state of Iowa and then Dubuque. And Yeah, that was, in all honesty, that was difficult to do because, and I remember people saying, "You have all this interest to go to these, you know, big sexy schools on a scholarship with something, and you're going to go play hockey in Iowa, and it's not even guaranteed that you're going to get interest from a college." Right. So I had to kind of swallow my pride, if you will. And by the way, like, there really is no shame in going playing juniors. It's a stepping stone to go play in college.
Hmm.
But again, there's a lot of people that do that and nothing happens from
For
that.
sure.
Yeah. So now I'm in Iowa, and it's a tough lifestyle. If so, all these kids nowadays work so hard, and juniors is part of the process. I got to tell you, it's a grind.
Hmm.
It can be better based off of your billet family and how much time and money they spend on. I'm sorry, how much time and money the program has, but in Dubuque we didn't have much. So I told myself real quick that I was going to play 1 year, and if
Hmm.
it works out, that's great, and if it doesn't, I had a little bit of anxiety of watching all my friends go to school and do all this stuff, and I'm sitting here. I just felt like I was just sitting in Iowa playing hockey, and it just didn't. I don't know. It just didn't feel great, to be honest. So I had a pretty decent year, I would say. We had a really bad team, which did not help, and we had a very interesting philosophy on offense on our team. So it was a very tough team to rack up a bunch of points. But I started talking to Mankato, and I was a Gopher fan growing up because that was the closest thing. But I always respected, the St. Clouds and then Duluth and Mankato and all these surrounding schools that I thought had good programs. So when I had the opportunity to go play at Mankato, I was extremely excited. And they offered. Uh, it's not like football. They can offer full scholarships, but there's a lot of percentage scholarships. So they offered me money to play there. I was more than happy to go to Mankato. So that would, I guess, would summarize the recruiting process. And then I lumped in some juniors there as well. So
And
yeah.
then, so I don't want to fast forward all the way today from college. So if you want to fill us in, kind of your major, where you work, you already said you work for Ecolabs, and then
Yeah.
if you want to talk about, there's a lot of other cool things that you did, especially the Red Bull crash ice. So if
Yeah.
you kind of
Yeah.
want
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
if you want to talk about, like I said, kind of that post graduation of college, kind of where you start working, and then maybe get to today.
Yeah. So my wife and I have 18 years. Had a
Unexpected surprise, and we found out that on my sophomore year, we found out that she was pregnant. So I will take a half step back into college and say that changed some things. And the reason I bring that up is that I had to provide for a family, and
I had the opportunity to go play minor hockey, and I just felt like it was important to get more of a stable job with insurance and all that good stuff. Looking back, I really wish I would have went and tried. The interest was like in the East Coast Hockey League. There was one AHL team talking to me, and at minimum, it would have been fun just to go to Europe and live there for a year or two and play hockey. But I didn't. I got a job with Ecolab, and I got. I mean, I had to do this. I got an offer really before I even graduated college, so I was ready to get right into it, and I did it for 2.5 years. It was a very difficult job, and it was very, very long hours, but it kind of paid the bills. So it was a good job at the time. And then yeah, I went into 3M, and when you take the job in 3M, they say, hey, you're going to be in sales, and you say, great, where? And they say, well, somewhere in the country, but not Minnesota. Okay, well, where? Well, we don't know until about 3 to 4 or 5 months into you working, and then we're going to tell you where to go. So you kind of got to give yourself up to the company, which I did, or which we did. And then we ended up in, again, the Chicagoland area, which was a good experience and close enough to family to get back. And then I ended up taking a job with 3M back here, back at the corporate headquarters back in 2011. And we've been here since. So it's been good.
Yeah, and then once again, I would love to hear about Crash Ice and how you
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
heard
yeah,
about
yeah,
that
yeah.
and how you got into that, and then how you
So
did it too.
yeah, what was that?
So how'd you hear about it? How'd you
Oh
do it?
yeah,
And then
oh
let's
yeah,
hear everything that
absolutely.
goes into that.
So I would say in hockey, I had I I played college hockey, so I would say I had above average hands, but I didn't have like some of the silky smooth hands that people did. But I was always one of the fastest people on the ice, right? So I always thought um, when I saw this when I was in like 2005. I saw when it was just starting up. There was a weird commercial late at night that I thought was super interesting because it showed this, and it showed at Quebec City
Hmm.
where they in Quebec City they go in and out of these buildings, and it was the what is now Red Bull Crash Ice, and it was really amazing. And I remember telling my wife sitting there in bed, I'm like, I would be great at this. Like, I wish that I could do this, but it just starting work and it just didn't make sense. So fast forward like 5 to 6 years later, we're picking up my son from hockey, and I open up a Let's Play Hockey. And I always take a look at maybe what are they talking about, the articles, who's ranked nowadays. And the first page, I open it up, and it says, "Hey, Red Bull Crash Ice tryouts." So at this point, I'm what 30 years old, I think. And I said, "Oh my God, you got to be kidding me!" I'm like, I want to do this. Why not? Why not do it at 30? I guess, right? And I look and I said, "Oh, I missed all the tryouts." Um, but there was one tryout left in St. Louis. So, and it was like in 2 or 3 days. So I talked to my wife, and we agreed, like, you know what? Let's just go do it. Let's go try. I had no clue what I was getting into. So we drove down 6.5 hours or so. And I think I went right to the tryout, which was flat ice. And it's an obstacle course where you're jumping, sliding under things, turning, boom, boom, boom. And there was about 60 people that showed up for that tryout. And I would say that everyone was younger than I was. So they took 2 people out of 60, and I didn't know what I was getting into, but I ended up having the fastest time out of all 60 people. So I had an automatic spot, and then there was like a playoff for the other 4 to try to take the second spot. But it was like I found out about it, and 3 days later I qualified for it. And we just went through this long history of playing sports in high school and college. And I got to tell you, like from a rush standpoint, it was probably the biggest rush
It's up there, huh?
I had in sports. Yeah. I'll never forget. We pulled up to the first track, and if for anyone that's gone to this, you look at the track, you're like, wow, that is really a crazy track. And I thought that too going up to it. I'm like, that's a pretty crazy track. But when you get on skates and you go on the top of the ramp, especially year 2 and 3, where you're going up 6 stories, and you get up there and you're on the ramp, there was a lot of people that went back down the stairs,
No
and
way.
they never even tried it. I built up a lot of courage. Like, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And then you just go. And I always tell the story, the second year, the ramp went straight down for quite some time. So you would sprint off and you go off the edge and you'd start to fall, and your skates would go, if this is the ramp, your skates would go off the ice, and then you'd reconnect. And it probably ended up being 15, 25 feet that you were off, but you're falling, and then you reconnect back with the ice. But going back that first year, there was a lot of people that probably should have never done it, because statistically there was like 9 people that got taken to the emergency room because of the injuries that they sustained while doing the track. And it got better every year. But yeah, it was an unbelievable experience. And in the first year, I ended up being one of, it started with hundreds and hundreds of US individuals. It might even have been upwards to 1,000 if you count all the tryouts. There's over 1,000 skaters, and I was fortunate enough to be selected as a top 4 individual, because I placed the highest or second highest. I think it was me and Cameron Nas, who ended up winning this thing multiple times. Took we're right next to each other in the rankings. So they asked me to be a part of Team USA, which was a real cool honor that I couldn't accept, because I just came up here and started working for 3M, and I would have had to take 2 to 3 weeks off to go do what other people that made the team were taking a semester off of college, because it's like, hey, I'm going to do this. And I'm like, I'm like 7 years or 8 years out of college.
Only one with a 401k. You tell them,
yeah, exactly right.
I got to get the insurance for the kids, and they're probably looking at you sideways, huh?
Yeah, they got to go to like 3 or 4 different destinations in Europe, and they had a blast. And definitely, again, something that would have been fun to do, but I ended up doing it every year that it was in St. Paul, which I think was probably 6 or 7 times. So 6 or 7 years I ended up doing the race. And I will say, even the last year, I felt like I was pretty competitive. The last race that I went through, I ended up taking like the number 9 guy in the world and the number 11 guy in the world rankings. I passed them to take them out of the round to go to the next round. So it was fun. It was dangerous. It continued to get more scary as the years went on, and I got a couple injuries from that. But I got to tell you, you're up on this thing and the lights are going crazy, and you got a helicopter down, and it's a sea of people, and it's cold as hell, by the way. And it's riders take your lane, 5-second warning, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, that's great. Then I guess walk us through to where we are today. If you want to talk
Yeah.
about your wife some more, maybe you should give her a couple
Yeah.
more shout outs. It's always nice to do that. I learned that one from Mr. Veit. He's just smiling. And then your family as well. I know your son is currently a Division I athlete, and kind of a cool story that goes along with that as well. So if you want to walk us through your children,
Yeah.
your wife, and everything else about your family.
Yeah. Again, my wife of 18 years, and she was a great athlete as well. She played. She won a state tournament at Woodbury for soccer. She was in the state tournament 3 or 4 years. She played varsity for 4 years. She had the opportunity to play at the college level. She decided that she wanted to enjoy college instead, which I totally get. And she was again just an explosive athlete. And I bring up all this because our son Joey is a pretty gifted athlete as well. Where he's a big boy. He's taller than I am. He's 6'3". Probably about 212 pounds, and they want to put another 20 pounds on him as an outside linebacker at the University of Minnesota. He's been there now since summer. He did the all-night grad party in high school on a Sunday night, and then 3 hours after the all-night grad party, that kind of, to me, signals, hey, we're done with high school. 3 hours later, we were moving him in to start the lifting program. So he didn't get the 2 or 3 months like a lot of kids get. But he was also, I would say, a rare athlete, one of the last athletes to play very few to play 3 sports at the varsity level. I thought that was really important. I still do, and I'll die on that hill. The specialization is a whole other story. It's too much of it, but yeah, we lived in Woodbury, but we're in the Stillwater School District. When we moved 2 miles down the road, he played for Woodbury his junior and senior year. And I think the thing I'll talk about with him is the recruiting process as a parent is way different, and the recruiting process in general right now is super crazy. So the long and the short for him is he had a COVID year his junior year, so he had very limited game tape. But he had enough to get some Division I colleges interested. So the University of Illinois, Northwestern, and the Gophers were kind of the 3 big ones that he was talking to. He had an offer from South Dakota State, which is a great program as an FCS school, Division I AA. And because of COVID, there's 25-year-olds, 24-year-olds that are playing college football, and there's limited for his year. There was limited scholarships, so they're like, yeah, we have most of the teams had half the scholarships that they typically have. So South Dakota State is a very great program. The coaching staff is awesome. They said, hey, we want to offer you a full scholarship. If you get a scholarship from a Big Ten school and it's your dream school, obviously we can't say anything anyways, but we totally understand it and respect that. And the Gophers were talking to Joe throughout the entire year. We thought for sure they were going to pull the trigger, and sure enough, they did in December. And I think we kind of heard that Northwestern was getting close to offering as well. That's per the high school coach, and then Illinois was talking a little bit more about other options like gray shirt and stuff like that. It's super complicated. I don't wish that recruiting process upon any parent. And luckily ours, I think, kind of happened fairly quick because there's some kids that start getting recruited as sophomores. But I would say he was a little bit more of a late bloomer. He was a little bit more of a skinny kid, skinny kid. He was always a really good athlete. But my message to parents is, and listen, there's too many parents that think about college scholarships with their kids. And honestly, we never thought that. And even when the Gophers offered our son, we said, hey, if you don't want to play football, we understand. Like, this has to be something you want to do. But too many people get, focused on
on the scholarship, but in the end, we just wanted to keep our son and my daughter, and my other son, playing sports and having fun. And if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. There's too many people that are backwards on that. My daughter does play soccer just like my wife did. Her team, she plays right now for Woodbury. They're ranked. They're probably a top 5 ranked team in the States. They got a nice team, and it's been fun watching her play soccer. And she does all the club soccer. She's 100% dedicated to soccer, which that's what she wanted to do. I tried to get her to play hockey. I tried to get her to play softball. She did a little bit, but she just kept saying, I just want to play soccer. So in the end, you just got to concede. And then I have a son that's 10 years younger than my oldest, and he plays all 3 sports. Now as a parent to him and talking to parents, I always tell them that I have a crystal ball that can at least look 10 years into the future. And the average parent's pretty crazy with what they're doing for their kids and in sports now. And I try to veer them away from it respectfully, but a lot of them don't listen. They get caught in the grind. So yeah.
Well, that's
but
awesome.
yeah, that's a family. It's we're a sports family. Well, there's no doubt. It's been an important part of all of our lives, and it's fun. It's really fun watching it as a parent. And then another fun fact I thought was crazy is I was fortunate to be all Metro in football back in high school for football, and my son was able to be the same thing for football. Maybe that's happened since Randy Shaver's been doing it in 30 years, but probably not, I would say. So I think it's a pretty cool thing.
That's great. So you've already kind of talked about maybe a little bit about this. One of our last questions here is advice to parents. So, or coaches as well. You've kind of mentioned a couple different things about being 3 sport athletes and supporting your kids. So anything else you want to add to that kind of question where you're giving advice to parents or coaches?
Yeah, I would say I'll start with parents. First off, smell the roses, because you get caught up on, and listen, I've done it too. There's a lot of times you get caught up on, you're the only one zoning in on your kid, okay, during the games. You're the only one that's watching them fumble a puck or maybe not hustle to the boards to get it to the breakout. And I got a newsflash for you. If you played hockey, you did the same thing. And if you played baseball, you're striking out just as much as your kid is, right? Or how could they look at the third strike down the middle? You did the same thing, trust me. And with football, you weren't as badass as you thought you were, I guess. That's my thing, is that it's been actually really refreshing. Like I really do not talk about things that happened in high school, a lot of sports. My wife actually tells me like I never talk about it. And, it's like you only let people talk about what they did back in the past for sports, and you just let them talk. I'm like, yeah, it is what it is. It doesn't matter. But I just think that the parents only remember the things that they did well. They only remember what they want to remember. And I think like they don't realize that if they see flaws in their kids or they're not doing everything perfect, they didn't either. So embrace them and watch them try to get better, be a good teammate. And one of the most important things, honestly, is for them to start, especially in today's world, to start developing habits to make something slightly better. Because if they can do that in sports, they can do that in other parts of their life, and that can help them become a better person. And that's what it's about. And I will tell you another thing, like if the average parent would spend a 10th on education as they do with their kids' sports, it would probably be a good thing, because we have no problem spending, I don't know, let's just say $5,000 for a club soccer season, but you don't put anything towards academics. And we have to realize, like, yes, it's fun for athletics, but you gotta put the time and energy and focus into other parts of to keep a well-balanced life and a well-balanced childhood for your kid. That's definitely advice that I would give. And the other thing, the biggest thing for me, is stop trying to specialize your kid into a sport. I know that he may be you may have created a social circle in it with parents, and they're doing the special camp, and they're doing AAA hockey, and they're doing that. So if Jimmy's doing that, I got to make sure my son Tommy also has the opportunity to do that. It's a rat race, and I'm telling you, for those that think their kid is I'm getting pretty candid here, but for those that think that their kid is a gift from God in the hockey world, puberty is an ultimate equalizer. And then you also don't know what they all of a sudden really start liking video games, girls, other things besides sports. So my best advice is work very hard to keep them to wanting to continue to play the next year. And if you get them to continue to want to play the next year, that's in the sports world, that's success.
Perfect. Last question then, same kind of question, but now it's a student athlete. So your son has already gone through the high school experience and the recruiting process, is now playing at the Division I level. Your son and daughter are both athletes as well. So kind of talking to anybody maybe that is a future, college athlete, or maybe on that path, or maybe even younger like your other kids. So giving them 2 pieces of advice, what do you think they would be?
2 pieces of advice. Well, okay, so enjoy your youth sports and enjoy your high school sports, because nothing is more fun. I will when you hit college, it's a job. We went in Mankato, we went on a 19 game unbeaten streak. We were one of the top. We were ranked, I think, 1 or 2 in the country in Division I. And I remember being on one knee in the middle of practice saying, "Hey, don't ever forget that you were having far more fun back when you played back when you were younger." It is the most fun to play in front of your parents, with your friends, in front of your friends, in the community, than anything. And if you listen to anyone that's went to the NHL and won a Stanley Cup and won this, they'll tell you high school and Bantams and Pee Wees for hockey was more fun. Like, that was the most fun they had, because it becomes a job. So try not to make it a job in middle school. Try not to make it a job in high school. And some people do that when they turn it into a year-round sport. Okay, balance your mind and body out. Play multiple sports. Do multiple things, because you also are going to be more injury prone if you work the same muscles in the same sports all year. So I don't know if that was 1 or 2 pieces of advice. Oh, I'm going to give one more. That's one, because the second one is, you really need to take a step back, and you really need to understand everything that your support system, whether that's just your parents or your uncles and aunts or your siblings, and realize that they are putting all this time and energy into trying to give you the best experience possible. And you have to appreciate that, and you have to be extremely grateful, and show them with the way that you act on a daily basis and the respect that you have for them. Show them through those ways.
Perfect. Adam, that's all the questions I got for you. The last thing we always do is just turn the microphone over to the guest. Anything else you want to get off your chest? Anything I didn't ask you? Any other shout outs you want to give? So, like I said, this time is yours and you can go for it.
Yeah, I'll shout out to you for doing this on your, and I know it's a lot of work, and heck, we just spent a lot of time together, and you kept your eyes open through the entire thing. So, kudos to you. I will say that the community of Hastings, again, I miss the small community. I miss the community feel, and don't take that for granted either, because I live in Woodbury and it's split into multiple associations, multiple high schools. There's a ton of kids that go to Cretan. There's a ton of kids that go to Hill Murray. And I know that happens in Hastings as well, but it's not as often because it's a longer drive, I'm assuming. But, breathe it in, take it in. It's a fun journey, and embrace it. I'll say that. And I would say it's a shout out to anyone listening that I had experience with in sports, whether it was a coach,
a player, whatever it may be. It's my favorite time in my life is anytime I'm on a field or in a rink, and everyone that was a part of that for me is an important person in my life. So
Perfect. Thanks, Adam.
yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it.